I've been a full-time investigator for roughly 20 years. Started off in the Met Police and then City of London Police. I've always been on the techier side. Since I was very young, building my own computers, gaming, and I still game now at 49 years old. We've dealt with every major bankruptcy involving crypto. It's not just a case of you use a blockchain tool and that's it, job done.
No.
It's not. You still have to do other investigation methods as you would have done before. And some of the biggest hacks this year were partly due to social engineering to get those private keys, to get those passwords. We did some work, traced, managed to find it at an exchange.
Oh, wow.
I won't say which one.
No.
But they were very good. They froze that money for us straight away.
Yeah.
We then got in touch with law enforcement in that jurisdiction, guided them through the process because they didn't really have a clue about how to do any of it because it's all quite new, and that's fair enough.
Scott, good to see you.
You too?
Yeah. Everyone, Scott is from FTI Consulting, which, if you're not aware, is a huge organisation, and it's an incredible privilege to have Scott on the podcast today because he is instrumental in these types of investigations that we see, which is effectively looking to see and to find where crypto assets may be wherever they are in the world, on whichever exchange, and however they have been lost, stolen, or whatever it may be. So that is Scott's kind of quick summary background. But Scott, yes, thanks very much for coming on board.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's this podcast, we've been running it now it's about 2 years now, gaining some traction, and we've had some external speakers in, some to talk about tax and whatever it may be. But it's really, really great to have someone that's actually, at the coalface fighting these, and it appears like some large numbers involved, maybe some not so large numbers involved, but great to have you on board. So, what was your background to getting into all of this, Scott? How did you?
Yeah, so I've been a full-time investigator for roughly 20 years. Started off in the Met Police and then City of London Police. I spent 16 years jumping between those two. I was dealing with financial crime, volume fraud, complex fraud. Then I went to cybercrime, and then from there, the asset recovery stuff, the money laundering, like anything and everything you can think of to do with fraud. And then crypto started coming along. Sort of noticed one or two sort of coming in. No one really knew what to do with it. And then sort of a couple of us got together and sort of see there could be some advantages there, both personally and and obviously getting some knowledge on that to help the general public. And then from there, I went to Crystal Blockchain Analytics, which is a blockchain analytics software provider. Headed up their investigations team there for a few years. And whilst they dealt with everything that can go right or wrong with crypto. And then over a year ago, I joined FTI, where I lead the practice for blockchain digital assets, but mostly around the investigation side, audits, whatever it might be, anything and everything you can have a use case for in terms of blockchain and digital assets.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. And I mean, it's interesting. When did you start getting into that? When did you start thinking that crypto industry would become a snowball effect, and all of a sudden has its own, investigation unit or whatever it may be?
Yeah, I think working in fraud for so long, you can sort of spot what's going to, the next big thing. And with a lot of these things, the methods don't necessarily change, just the asset type.
Yes.
When I first started, it was traditional money. And then it was rare earth materials, diamonds, that sort of thing.
Okay.
But same scams, but just buy diamonds, you
Yeah.
know, or we can double your money in 45 minutes.
They'll
And-
get rich.
get rich
scheme.
quick. And unfortunately, people get taken into it, whether it's by greed or
Yeah.
desperation, and then it started moving on. So you start to see more crypto stuff coming. I've always been on the techier side. I've since I was very young, building my own computers,
Right. Yeah.
gaming, and I still game now. At 49 years old, still on the PlayStation, on the PC,
Absolutely.
still doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you get a feel for these things, and and you could see it was getting sort of a bit more traction on the media, and they started seeing courses available on it, and things like that. And you can sort of start seeing some use cases for some of the tokens, and obviously then you could see the use case for all the things that you could do that would be wrong.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's yeah. I mean, that's effectively where we came into it as well. It's the same. It's what we do from a civil recovery point is it would be the same if it was a gold bar that had been stolen. It's the same process. But what we find with crypto is that you have these intermediaries that whether it's an exchange or a wallet holder or that may not be so used to civil recovery or being named as a potential defendant or whatever it may be. I mean, in earlier podcasts, we talk at length about how you would use FTI or someone like yourself to find the asset if it's there, if it can be found once it's been lost or stolen or whatever it may be. It's I think now it seems to be a case that those intermediaries, wallet holders, exchanges are quite used to that. After let's say 5 years of some quite hectic litigation that's taken place. Yeah, which is great. And I mean, FTI has big team dealing with these types of issues. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've got over 40 people now just in the US alone, just dealing with blockchain digital assets.
Yeah.
Our practice lead has probably given evidence more times than anyone I know in terms of crypto cases.
Yeah.
He's actually abroad at the moment doing the same thing.
Right.
But I'd say we've dealt with every major bankruptcy involving crypto. And we've got a good team. We've got ex-Secret Service, FBI, Interpol, district attorneys,
Wow.
and then me.
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, that's. I'm sure you're there for a reason.
Yeah.
But fascinating, and I know you guys have had some great success stories, which has been brilliant to hear. Which I think we've heard about over a beer or two. So it's very useful having someone like Scott that you can turn to from a lawyer's point of view and say, you do what you need to do from your expertise side of things. Once it's there and you can see that it could potentially be recovered or how it's been taken or whatever it may be, that is extremely, extremely useful. So yeah, not only is it great to have you on the podcast, it's also great to actually know that you're there when we need you. But it would be useful, I think, for the listeners, Scott, if you could take us through a kind of a day-to-day example or something like that where you would be put into practice.
Yeah, I mean, I can give you sort of like a basic example first, and I can sort of probably go into more depth in the second one.
Yeah, sounds great.
Which I had more involvement in. Let's say like a normal example would be, would be asked or engaged to look at something, and one example would be a decentralized exchange. They lost more than $50 million in digital assets, and that was just following an attack. A class action was forming against that organisation as a result, and that included allegations of conspiracy to defraud the customers. And I say they engaged us to conduct our cryptocurrency and digital assets investigations that we did. So one of the things we had to do was determine the source of the attacks and then validate or disprove any other claims that were being made in relation to those stolen funds.
Yeah.
So the main crux of it was it sort of broke down into 4 parts, and the first part was performing the on-chain cryptocurrency track and trace.
Yeah.
That's the basic side of things, the bread and butter of a lot of these cases. And the reason we do that is we can trace the assets, see where they've come from,
Yes.
see what they've been, see what they're interactive with,
Right.
and then where are they at the moment,
Yeah.
or where did they ultimately end up?
Yeah.
And again, using that same method to validate any claims, to prove something did happen, or to prove something didn't happen, or,
Yes.
or completely independently, as we are, to show what did happen if it's completely different to what both sides are saying.
Yeah.
As well, present those as facts, because they
Yeah.
are facts.
Yeah.
Secondly, it was to develop and verify timelines of those transactions. It's quite common to have to provide various reports showing, what happened, and then doing that in a non-technical manner as well, because
Yeah.
when these ultimately go to court, you've got a judge there who might not necessarily
Yep.
understand the inner workings of blockchains,
Yes.
cryptocurrency. So you have to
guide them through.
go in at a certain level and make sure they understand that, and then as an expert witness as well, be able to go to that same hearing and explain it again yourself if needs be.
Yes.
And all the problems. And then thirdly, it was just the assessment of any factual evidence to help them with any strategies or the next steps in investigation. So a lot of times we'll do some tracing, for example, along with other like open source intelligence or whatever. It's not just the case of you use a blockchain tool and that's it, job done.
No.
It's not. You still have to do other investigation methods as you would have done before. And then, generally we'll get preliminary findings, present those to a client, and then from there we'll then form the strategy for the next steps.
Yeah.
And then in this case particular, it was requesting their know your customer information for the account holders.
Right.
Just to verify those account holders were, like, if they even knew each other, or if they were even the same person having more than one account using different names, for example.
Yes.
And as a result of the work on that one, we found there was no factual substantiation of any of those allegations that were made. So end result is we disproved all those allegations and it moved forward.
Yeah. Amazing. So that was there. So the opposing counsel then were basically trying to say to your client, well, hold on, you didn't do your proper checks and whatever it may be to show that customers are who they say they are. As a result, $50 million has been stolen.
Yeah.
And we would like a pop at that. And you were, it's great to hear that you were successful in actually showing, well, actually, no, our client wasn't at fault.
Yeah,
on any of this.
the end result of that one, it was, they removed the filing for the class action, which then avoided large, expensive legal battle. So
God, yeah, and
all
these,
good.
Yeah, and these cases are very expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, with 50 million, at play in terms of wanting to be recovered, you could imagine the legal fees would be substantial. So yeah, God, that's
when you look at the class actions as well, a
Yeah,
lot of
it
people,
could be-
a lot of money, it could go on for
Exactly.
a long time.
and not just the 50 million stolen, but then potentially damages for whatever it might be, breach of contract or performance issues, negligence, whatever. So wow, that's really interesting. I mean, I think that gives the listeners a flavour of the types of scam you can see that takes place. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you know, but there it is, in the flesh, 50 million that's been stolen, and everything else that comes out of that. It's not just finding that; it's then potentially going against what someone's trying to say that a client should be responsible for as well. So, interesting. Okay. And then the second one, I think you were excited about this one.
Had a bit more personal involvement in this one,
Yeah.
so a bit more fun. But so back in 2023, it was a news outlet, not in the UK, and I do have to sort of beat around the bush on this with terms of names and
Yeah, of course.
because there's still parts of it that may or may not be ongoing. So,
Right.
so it might sound a bit vague, but you'll still get the gist of it. So,
Yeah.
so this news outlet received quite a lot of reports about suspicious money flows, abnormal price trends, and then issues around a company, and even the use of AI like ChatGPT in relation to this company, and about their offering, which was being used quite large in this jurisdiction. So to investigate that further, the news outlet engaged my services, and then we published those findings later on. But in short, in terms of the company, the business model was complex and opaque. It was designed to be that way, so that if someone was looking into it, they'd probably want to give up quite early on,
Right.
Because they're just trying to make it as difficult as possible, so that you don't look at it, basically. Especially for the less experienced crypto investors. So those that were buying into this platform, they'd probably take one look at a few of the bits and go, "No, it's too difficult," and just go along with it, forget it, or whatever they might do. So they were worried it was a scam, and that only the founder and certain people within that organisation were going to benefit from this.
Yes.
So was asked to look into that, and the various things that were stated on the website, things that they had from people that had made reports to the news outlet, different allegations. So we did. So started looking into that. It did actually end up in court. That company tried to put an injunction against that news outlet,
Right.
based on what I provided. And then during that court hearing, there was 12 charges that they tried to bring to say that it wasn't quite correct, but based on the report that I'd produced, all 12 got dropped and found in our favour on the information that I'd provided. But just to go into some details on it, so the company was founded in 2021.
Okay.
And within less than a year, it was already being reported to consumer rights watchdogs.
Right.
Major red flag. And they were warning potential investors against being involved in that company or investing in that platform. And then the news outlets started receiving queries as well about their viability. And then there was more things that were coming up that were showing us more red flags. And then, one of the things I found was that the founder was associated with another scam or similar type scam.
Right.
Which again obviously helps in terms of the charges that were brought. And then when we started looking into it, the way that the company was set up and the way the movement of funds were done, it resembled exactly the same kind of thing you'd see in traditional money laundering.
Right.
But just in this case, crypto was involved or alleged, or they believed to be. But when we sort of started scrutinising that trial, it disappeared, and it just looked like money had gone into their platform that they'd set up online, and then that was just changed into fiat currency, into dollars, euros, whatever it might be, at different stages, and no investments were actually done.
Right. It's a classic scam.
One of the other things we noticed was that they claimed that their platform was an enhanced version of the Litecoin blockchain.
Okay.
But we couldn't verify that. That wasn't. It just wasn't there. It just wasn't true. And all they did do in the end was they had their own database, internal database, which looked like a blockchain and looked like it was transacting records and making transactions and producing hashes, but it was just fake. It was all fake.
Oh God.
And then when looked into their white paper, which describes what the project is, I'd done a few checks, and it was basically written by ChatGPT.
Right.
So they'd just gone into ChatGPT and said, "Can you write me a white paper? This is the name of the platform," and that's what it was.
Amazing.
That was verified. But again, even within that white paper, there was very little practical information about how it even worked. Basic stuff that you'd expect to be in there, especially if they're supposedly blockchain experts and they're creating their own version of a known blockchain.
Exactly.
Where's the practical side? Like, where's the technical side that actually, how does it work? And it just wasn't there.
Yeah.
And that just, again, more and more thinking, this is definitely something not quite right. And, they shouldn't need to use AI to get those answers.
Yeah, quite right. Yeah.
And then again, the company was registered in Georgia. not necessarily a problem. I've been to Georgia. I presented to their national bank, and they're doing a lot of good work over there in terms of crypto. But so they just said they was registered in Georgia, but didn't have any evidence to support that they were actually registered in Georgia, and that sort of thing. Register
Another red flag.
Register at a company's house isn't difficult. Normally scammers do it. Like over here, it's £15 or
just to
register a company's house, and it is just a register.
Yeah.
So they don't do anything with that database. You can make an inquiry, but they don't investigate anything, or it's left for law enforcement. So there was no evidence that any of this actually existed, that the blockchain existed, that the company was registered, and it just looked like money laundering at that point. The other locations that they were some involvement with were certain parts or some jurisdictions that were, shall we say, maybe not friendly to law enforcement or regulators or anything like that. So they were maybe working, but in areas where it would be easy to do wrongdoing. And then done some research into the founder as well. He used to make public appearances at seminars and some crypto events, and then like a big social media presence, which a lot of these scammers do use, unfortunately. But it didn't have any substance to back up his claims of who he was, what he'd done in the past. And then when then further looking again, and then there was like the financial market supervisory authority in Austria. They'd announced that they'd filed a complaint against another company, which was associated with the founder of this company,
right?
And again, regarding a raft of financial crimes. So done it before, probably moving on to the next scam. Before they move on to the next one and the next one.
So was he trying to get the investment in and then laundering the money? So
he was taking investments onto the platform, and then certain periods they'd move X amount of money into fiat currency and just send it off wherever.
And do you know the sums that we're talking about in terms of scam sums? Or?
Yeah, it was in the millions. I can't remember the exact amount, but it was millions.
Yeah, and this is
a lot.
Yeah, it is, and I'm assuming hundreds or thousands of people affected.
It was massive. It went. It wasn't just one jurisdiction. It was quite
all over,
quite a few. Most of Europe, US, and a few other places.
Well, I won't ask what tools you use and tactics you use to find out all of that, but it's very very useful to know that you can. So, no, thank you for those two case studies. And then I think you wanted to talk about potentially where the future of all of this might go, if that's something that.
Yeah, it's just sort of like where are these organised crime groups going next? In general, and as the past has dictated, the organised crime groups are ahead. In terms of innovation. They probably pay more money than most to get these answers. I've heard of programmers or coders getting paid like $1 million a year to work on a project, and they run them like businesses. You have your CEO, your middle management, and area manager, and like your programmers, and they have meetings like normal. They walk around in suits. It's like a proper business. It's not, and in some ways probably more organised than some law enforcement as well. But I can. So in terms of innovation, I think AI is going to be one of the tools that they will implement going forward. I think, already seeing instances of them using AI, such as like you see deep fakes probably not being used that much at the moment. But I can see a point where, they'll have a deep fake of a CEO, for example, that could maybe do a Microsoft Teams call or Zoom call or some other video call to an employee in the accounts department. Hopefully I'm not giving anyone ideas here. And then, they can make that, they'll think it's a CEO and they'll say, right, make that £1 million payment right now to thinking I need it really quickly. and then not thinking twice. And some of them deep fakes are pretty good.
Yeah, and just goes ahead and does it, and the money's gone.
Yeah, they'll send it, bang, gone. And I can see that happening.
Yeah.
I say a lot of things are done via social engineering anyway these days.
Yeah.
And some of the biggest hacks this year were partly due to social engineering to get those private keys, to get those passwords, etc.
God, it's scary, isn't it?
It's the same with the voices, very easy to do,
Yeah.
and they'll advertise it as like a fun app or something like that. So for years you've always been able to spoof mobile phone numbers, spoof email addresses, a lot of cyber stuff you've been able to do for years anyway, and this will just take it to another level. So I'll be able to phone you up using probably even using an app that's free on the Play Store or something like that. And it will have the voice of whoever, and it will talk to you and say, "Oh, can you just quickly pay this for such and such?" But they would have probably already done their social engineering bit first to get that information on that person and the person they're talking to. They would have checked their social media profiles. They would have seen that they've, say, been to a football match, say this last weekend, and they'll use that when they talk to them, and they'll say, "Oh yeah, how did Spurs get on last week?"
Wow.
Being a fan, probably lost. But and they'll just think, it's definitely them, because they're asking me about my private life as well. Or sometimes they've done a sustained campaign of speaking to the same person, building a rapport, and then they like them, and then because they like them, they feel like they've got to do something for them. And the same with the authority thing. It's the same thing. They feel they have to do it because it's the boss.
It's terrifying, isn't it? It makes you not ever want to. You don't want to answer the phone at all, or
no one the same. Or like anyone that phones me gets a hard time, pretty much. From a company, I never believe anyone that's called me. It's like
absolutely.
I don't think it should.
Say you are.
Whether it be the bank or broadband provider, whatever. No, I'll call you back.
No, it's very scary, isn't it? It really is. I mean,
I mean, another thing that like they're going to start doing, I think, would be using large language models to identify bugs or exploits or issues within smart contracts, for example. They could just go through thousands of smart contracts using this model, looking for exploits that they could then use to drain people's wallets and things like that. That's another way that you could do this. And again, using AI bots, etc., to have a larger and quicker presence on social media again. We all get rubbish investment things pop up in our feeds, regardless of the platform. And I can see that getting more prolific. And then again, they can use it to create fake ID documents, again, which they can then use to open up accounts with various exchanges, banks or whatever. Again, stuff that's been done for years. I could go online now probably and buy an account with an exchange that's KYC verified with video, etc. And the same with fiat bank accounts, and it's been like that for years.
God, it really is scary. The more I think about it, the more you want to be offline. I mean, we certainly get our cautionary tales, especially with deep fakes. But I mean, it's stuff like large language models is beyond me at this stage. So, like I said, I'm glad we've got you on board to call when we need it. But no, really interesting. And what I think, lastly, maybe it would be useful to know, or good to know, what's been your most rewarding transaction, whether with FTI or previous career, or
I think the biggest it was probably one of the easiest as well, actually. Someone had lost or was hacked for 600,000.
Right.
It's not millions,
no,
but it's still a lot of money
to them. A lot of money, I'm sure.
And this was one individual, a lot of money, hacked, and it was a good hack as well. It wasn't basic human error. It was a good effort. We did some work, traced, managed to find it at an exchange.
Oh wow!
I won't say which one.
No.
But they were very good. They froze that money for us straight away. We then got in touch with law enforcement in that jurisdiction, guided them through the process, because they didn't really have a clue about how to do any of it, because it's all quite new, and that's fair enough. So various calls with them, talked them through it, what paperwork was required, etc. That got sent to their court, they provided the order to that exchange and then returned the money to the client. So that's probably one of the nicest, and it was one of the easiest, less griefy transactions that I've had, and it was a good reward.
Absolutely.
For them.
Yeah. God, I can imagine that was a fun call to have with them when you said, look, it's coming back to you, and we've done a job well done.
But you do get the same feeling even with the smaller amounts, because obviously someone might lose £1,000 and people might say, well, that's not really a lot of money, but to an individual,
it depends who you speak to.
That is a lot, and in the cost of living crisis, that's bad.
Yeah.
I generally try and help where I can on those as well.
Yes, that's
whether it's in my own time or whatever it might be, but just to give them a chance, getting some recourse.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I mean we're the same. We'll look at anything that comes through, and as long as it's cost proportionate to the client and it makes sense for them to do it, we look into it. So amazing. Well, Scott, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. It'll be good to have you at some point in the future. But yes, thanks everyone, and that's it's Scott Pounder from FTI. If you need him, call him.